Peace, 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 peace. Welcome, y'all. It's a portal day, and look who we got in the building. I'm not even going to get started on my giddy thing. I'm going to welcome you first to being here with Nick and Roo UnRead. We are here for the first time in 2025. We are excited. We are live. We are feeling live, and we are live with you. Today, we are going to be talking about something that I am so interested in, and Nick actually has began to offer as a service is numerology. And guess what? This is his master teacher. So I am so excited to have Father Strayhorn here with us. This is Nick and Roo UnRead. Nick, take it away.
All right. Well, Lloyd, he's used to these glowing introductions. If it was just him and I would keep it plain. But I have to make it glowing for the family and make it glowing for Roo here.
Yes.
No, you don't. All you got to do is just, this is Lloyd, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. You know how we do. You know how we do. But yes, if the family isn't familiar, we have the world-renowned Astro-Numerologist, of course, author, because he's here on UnRead. So we're going to talk a lot about books, but media personality, extensive background in radio. If you're from the East Coast, you know about WBLS 107.5. Of course, my parents were more Kiss FM people, but they merged together as one and became WBLS. Oprah Winfrey Show, the list goes on. And he's extended his media career beyond radio to having his own live shows on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook, Live with Lloyd every Monday and Wednesday. And like Roo said, if it weren't for this brother, there would be no supreme numerics right now. So, yeah, so this gentleman, he's very, with all those accolades, he's very down to earth. He started from being an indirect teacher to me through his books, through his courses, to a direct teacher, and now a colleague, friend, and family member. So
I say,
introduce you all. Some for the first time, some who are already familiar. Mr. Lloyd Strayhorn, welcome to UnRead Book Review with Nick and Roo.
Roo and Nick, my man, thank you very much.
Yes. It's such an honor to have you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, too. I've seen you and Nick in action and, talking about it. And I was flattered when he asked me about, 2 months ago, a month ago, or over a month ago, I think, about being a guest on here, about discussing about books, because I love books. And in fact, I've already pressed Nick about, okay, when you're going to have a book? Okay, I expect him to write a book.
Every time.
Any person that I feel very, very good at or close to, I encourage them to write a book. Because this is an ancient African science anyway.
Yes.
And so majority of the books that are written are by non-Africans, which is nothing wrong with that. But I never don't want to take anything away from us and what we do. That's my thing.
Yes, Yes. And it wouldn't be correct if I didn't start off this way by reading a little something. So today is Saturday, January 11th. We're in the first calendar month.
Yeah.
We're on the 11th calendar day. But the sun is in Capricorn, the moon is in Gemini. It's a 1 universal month. It's a 3 universal week and a 3 universal day. And that is coming from Mr. Lloyd Strayhorn.
I was going to say that sounds familiar. Okay, I was saying, gee, that sounds so familiar.
Like, hey, I've heard that before.
Yeah, I said that format sounds kind of like familiar.
Yeah, Sagittarius, Pisces, and those born on the 3rd, the 12th, the 21st, and the 30th are likely to be your best contacts during this 24-hour cycle. So that comes from the daily cosmic forecast for today.
Thank you. That's from my app too. Thanks so much.
Yes, it's from the app.
Wow. I didn't even know you had an app. Look at this, y'all. Listen, I'm telling you now, you know how Nick is. That is my technical master. He'll have all the information in the space beneath this video. Please make sure you support Father's books, his app, his show, him, period. Do not let this man get away from you, because he is a jewel for our community. And I'm so, so grateful to have you here. And Nick, you know, that was a great opening from his app. And I guess I'll start off with my questions, because, you know, I have a million of them. So many times people scoff at like numerology, astrology, all these different things as like superstition. So how do you convey to people that this is a true science? How did it become that for you? And what do you suggest moving forward for people who are skeptical about it?
Well, that's a great question, Roo. Actually, I grew up in a Baptist home. I was an altar boy. I used to sleep with a Bible under my pillow every night. I even went to seminary school. And but the people there were chasing more women than we were in New York City. Okay. So I said, let me do it another way. But what happens is this: I explained that the Bible is actually a numerology book. And there are there are 3 groups that tend to have a problem with what I do. They're born again Christians, Seventh-day Adventists, and Jehovah's Witnesses, right? So what happens is I explain to them that no matter what religious text you read from what religious body of this world, almost always they say, honor thy mother and father, thou shalt not kill. Yet many of the wars that are fought are in the name of religion, like the Muslims and the Hindus, you know, the Christians and this, that, and the other. But I tell people, name me a war fought in the name of a zodiac sign, the sign of Aquarius. They can't name me one. Name me a war fought in the name of the master number 22 or 44 or any other thing. They can't name me one. And then I refer to them to the Old Testament. The Old Testament, the 4th book of Moses, is called the book of the fourth book of Moses is called the book of Numbers. Where God instructs the name on the 2nd day of the 2nd month to name the armies by their name and their poll. So when they talk about the 12 tribes of Israel, if you go further into that section of the 4th book of Moses, each and every 12 tribes are given their numerical identification. So here's the thing with religion. Religion is a belief. They believe my God is better than your God, which is probably why we go to war. However, numerology is a science. It is a science. It's an ancient African science. And so I need to be clear with that. And again, you know, when I get on my show and whatnot, I ain't trying to take nothing from nobody, but I don't want nobody taking anything from us, especially this is our contribution. And here's the thing for me, Pythagoras is considered the father of numerology. Well, where did Pythagoras go to learn numerology? He was into Egypt. And then if one asked the logical question, well, on what continent is Egypt? The last time I checked, it's on the African continent, which tells you the origin right there. The Pyramid of Giza is built at the exact center of the world. Okay. You cannot do that willy-nilly. All right. So, of course, they want to give contributions and to everybody else. But again, it is an ancient African science. So that's how it is. And before we go further, I see we got Sean West, we got BTV, my girl, we got Miss Kimberly, we got all the students in the house.
We got the whole family in the building.
Yes, come out, support.
Hi, family.
Yes.
So let me tell you about my journey with a book, since we are here about books.
Sure.
I used to be, there was a famous store in Harlem called the Tree of Life Bookstore. And it was run by Akanya Kukumba, who was a Virgo, September the 8th, and Dr. John E. Moore, an herbologist, born December 26th. And between these men, they set up this institution where people could come in. They actually encourage people to steal books. I'd never seen nothing like that. In other words, they want you to go home with some. Now, to this day, I've got still 1 or 2 of the books from back then in my collection, okay, if truth be told. But what happens is there was a guy that says, John Harris, bless his soul, he would walk past me and say, brother, when you going to put that book out? He was born September the 4th. He would always say, when you, and I said, you know, I'd look at like who he talking to, because he wasn't talking to me, because writing a book was the last thing on my mind at that point. So I've asked people like Nick, I've asked other people like King Simon and Jackie Levine and Brandon and a whole lot of other people who then went on to write books to reclaim some of the things that belong to us. So what happens is a dear friend of mine gave me this book. He gave me this book, and it was just a plain book with stencils, right? So I stenciled it. Now they don't give you but so many letters, right? So in giving me the letters, I says, okay, this is how Numbers and You came into being. Not because I thought it would be, but because I only had but so many stencils to work with. All right. So this is how Numbers and You. So then as you see, I put my name at the bottom. And what happens, and so I even what happens is I even put inside, I put 495, I put the whole thing right there. And it was just in my imagination. This was in 1979 when I did this. And I have this original book to this day. And these were the contents. And it's so ironic because my first one is health. I've always been into health. I says, if I had to write chapters, what would these chapters be? And these were the chapters of the book. So to this day, I thank my brother Lloyd Williams, who's born we're born on the same date but a month apart, for giving me this because this encouraged it. So then I got to the point where I says, okay, I want to write a book. So they says, well, Lloyd, why don't you write it and put it on like Xerox copies? I says, yeah, it'll sell like Xerox copies too. No, I wanted to write a book. So what I did was it took me a lot because at that time, astrology and numerology books was kind of kept under wraps. People would walk around with them in newspaper bags. Okay. I mean, book covers, stuff like that. But this is the very first book I published. I published this book. I started this book in March, and I had it completed in September of 1980. This book, this September, will mark 45 years old. This book is, okay?
Wow.
This is the original Numbers and You book. It is 140 pages. I told the artist, Abdul Rahman, what color I wanted. Naturally, you see the 7 is the largest because I'm a 7. I mean, I don't know what else they want from me. You see, I had a profile of a man and a woman, both African. And it's interesting. I had a white client that told me, well, Lloyd, if I was you, I'd make the noses smaller. Had I thought that, I'd have made the noses larger. So there would be no doubt about the origin of our brothers and sisters. Okay. So that's it. So I put all the numbers from 1 to 9. As you see, I put the sun and the moon in between the 7. So all of this was very symbolic. And I put numbers in the back, stars in the background. So you kind of have to see how I did this. This is like really, really a work of art that I had. So this is the hardcover book. Then once I did that, I put it in a softcover book too. This is a softcover book. These are rare. These books are rare to get a hold of. But this is what happened in 1980. And at that time, there was the son of Sam, this guy, or they call him the 44 caliber killer. So what I would do is take actually events that were taking place and whatnot. And then in 1987, I was given a call. One of my students, Terrence Warner, was dating the editor of Random House books. Okay. And this lady they had hired to write a book on numerology was giving her a hard way to go, and the rest of the editors there. My student, Terrence Warner, who was dating the editor, says, why don't you call and have my teacher do it? That's what led to this book in 1987. Now, when I met Nick, this is the book he had, okay? I said, whoa. Now, right there, me and Nick bonded right there. Because we got this book. There you go. See?
Yeah.
See, but this is the book. This is the book that really did it for me. In this book, and I told him the book will sell forever, because when you're dealing with universal knowledge or universal principles, they never go out of style. That's like saying the sun and the moon ain't going to rise and set again. That's not true. So then in 97, 10 years later, this has been the classic book right here. But then actually what happened, people don't know there are two books.
Oh, wow. I got
Yes.
the one. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
So this book has gone through an evolution, and so I'm got an idea from a dear friend of mine about putting out another book that I think I'm going to do, and things that I observed, for example, things that I've got so many books. If I show you I got all these books up in here, but anyway, so what I want to do is write another book about some of the things I've observed that I didn't observe in any books. When you're doing something for all these decades, there is sometimes it says Mother Nature reveals some of her secrets. And some of the things I've noticed about the power of the name and whatever the case is like that. But it's very, very important to understand these things. And that's what I'm going to do. I think I am going to do that. I just don't know the title yet. But things I've observed, example, because you can tell from a person's birthday. So, for example, you, Roo, are born on the 2nd of February, right? So that makes you an Aquarius 2 person. So each of us have what is called, people are into these angel numbers now. Well, we all have angelic numbers and angelic days, dates, and months. So yours would be the 2, 7, 4, and 1. So that means there's certain days that would follow you, certain dates that would follow you, certain months, certain years, certain ages. And so when I wrote this book, Numbers and You, it came as a result of people ask me all these questions. Well, what about cars? I wrote about that. What about sports? I wrote about that. Everything this is why the book is called Numbers and You, based upon the things that people had asked about. And I did the research because I love to go down the rabbit hole anyway. And it made such a wonderful addition. And this book is still selling to this day. It's still selling. So it's nice. But again, when you're dealing with universal principles, that's how it goes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's amazing. Like I'm like, wow.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, I can't believe I said, gee, I wrote that book 45 years ago.
When you said 45 years, I was like, phew. I was like, that was a minute.
I was 2 years old when I wrote the book, okay?
How old?
2. I was only kidding.
No.
That's about right. That's
that
good
math.
Right.
That's what I'm about.
That's supreme numerics for sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
But and I thank those who, like John Harris, that encouraged me. I thank Lloyd Williams, my dear friend, that for whatever reason he just gave me this. I didn't say now I wanted to write a book or whatever the case is, but he gave me this. And when I saw the stencil, I says, "Ooh, if I wrote a book, what would be the name of the book?" This is what turned out. So everything now is Numbers and You, but it started with this book in '79 when he gave it to me. The stencil, I had enough stencil to do the title, do my name, and put a couple of chapters in. I ran out of stencil, but that was it. Little did I know, a year later, in March of 1980, I started, and I asked people for money too. I asked people, and some of the people who gave me money were people from the streets. It wasn't like family and friends. These were people that had a street lifestyle. Okay, I'm just trying to be nice about it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but they the one that gave me the money to do this and make it happen. And I says I want to publish it in a hard book. So what I did was this. So I would go around. I formed a company, Yama Publishing Company. I got my ISBN numbers. All right, and then I would go around to the stores being a representative. I'm representing Yama Publishing Company. We want to introduce this book in the stores. So I did it all. This is what I did. If I told them it was me, it wasn't going to go no place, which is why I never put a picture of my image on the book, because they would say, oh, it must be, it's because it's black. It's these preconceived notions. But when I dealt with universal principles, I did not want them to be distracted about what I look like. Now, I could do it. I could do it now, but I prefer to keep it just the way I had it. My formula worked good. Then once I got this book published and these books published, then I would go into Barnes and Nobles and whatnot. I look for my book. If it's at the bottom, I put it up eye level. Okay, listen. Seriously, but now it's easy. But these were all the steps I had to go through. And so sometimes we don't see these things, but it's the persistency that kind of makes it become what it is. So I'm very thankful that I've been always a stubborn kind of guy, always persistent. I told somebody one time, I burned my bridges behind me. By burning my bridges behind me, I had no choice but to go forward. I couldn't use an excuse. I had a family member say, well, Junie, we're cursed. No, you're cursed. I'm not cursed. Okay.
That part.
As soon as I hit a roadblock, I could use that as an excuse. Well, the Strayhorns are cursed and all that. No, I'm not down with none of that. So that's how I got where I got. And so then it evolved into all kind of other products, numerology app that. Thanks, Nick, for reading the forecast. I said, that sounds so familiar. So thank you for that. And newsletter, and the newsletter has expanded. I'm in a cooperation with a colleague who is on this platform viewing, and we have put it to a whole nother level. I mean, things have just grown. It's just grown, but it took time. But if a person has this instant gratification, overnight satisfaction, it's not going to go like that. But if a person is persistent and believe in themselves and what they're doing, God always honors diligence. You got to be diligent in what you do,
Yep, absolutely.
And every champion get knocked on their booty. Okay, every champion. They do. That's the deal.
Absolutely.
Up and fight, and that's what I do. So anyway,
you before we began, you said you an Aquarius too, and that made so much sense after that for me because I was like, oh, it's no quitting him. He don't know how to quit.
Yeah, I just don't.
We will go all the way around the mulberry bush trying to get to where we going. We go across it, under it, through it. We don't care.
Especially when we feel we're right.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm wavering,
when are we wrong? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
We
wrong. Moments, I know that. When I feel I'm right, because when publishing the original book in 80, people says, well, you can't do it. And I says, well, and it was almost, the book was nearly published. My attitude is if I couldn't do it, I might as well roll over and play dead. Why borrow the money? Why take the chance? Things of that nature. And people tested me when they gave me money too. They really tested me about if I give this money, would it work? The point is, it did happen, as you see, hardcover and softcover. See, I didn't want to just do one. I wanted to do both, a hardcover and a softcover, which I did. But it took a while. It took a while, but it was well worth it. It was well worth it. That I can tell you.
Nick, I'm gonna let you go ahead because I got the questions. I'm gonna just pause for a second and give the floor to you, my brother.
Okay, so I do want to speak about your other published works in just a moment, but I have my ideas about this question I'm getting ready to ask. But Lord, I would like to get your insight into Numbers and You, and what would you say makes Numbers and You stand out in comparison to other numerology books that are on the market or on the shelf? I have my idea, but I want to know what you think.
Well, for me, I'm a kind of a person that, like, born in the streets of New York, I would say, well, this is your number. This is your number. Their whole thing is, what does that mean? So, Missouri got the reputation as being the show me state. Well, Harlem is the show me city. Okay.
I know that's
anything
right.
You say anything in New York. Yeah. So what does that mean? I mean, I would almost come home with almost tears in my eyes, but it was a good lesson. And this is why I shortened the book to Numbers and You. Don't forget, when this was given to me, I had been studying numerology since 1970 at the time. So this is about 8 years later, reflection. But in that, dealing in the streets, going to events, people want to know, so what does that mean? What does that do for me? So so that's why it says a numerology guide for everyday living. What about love life? What about my health? What about travel? What about this? All these ideas came from people. That's why I call it Numbers and You. from people who would ask me these questions. And so it must have been a sign that I got this first book to then put it in the form that it became to be evolved into, from 140 pages to now with the Orange Book, 400 pages. And I could probably add more to it in light of my additional studies, like states, for example. For example, the state of California, everybody knows about all those wildfires. I think 36,000 acres have been burned in California. Well, California is a Virgo state. It was founded on September the 9th of 1850. It is born on the 9th. What is this year? The year of the 9. What is 9 rules? Fire. And in fact, California has 9 letters in its name. Okay.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So, listen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in fact, New Jersey was founded on December 18th of 1787. And so it is a 9. So don't forget, in December, they were talking about, wasn't there some fires, a rash of fires in New Jersey? I think, if I'm not mistaken.
There was one last night.
And then they were flying drones all over Jersey. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So it's very interesting. And there's one other state that gets me right now, but I'm into research. I'm into history. Now, let me tell you what numerology has done for me. It has taught me the rules of English. Okay. I now know what a diphthong is. Okay, little things like that. Subject verb agreements, 8 parts of speech. It taught me history. I mean, it has taught me so much. And then because I have issues, which is another way of saying I am nosy, okay, and like to get in people's business, help me ask questions in a way that doesn't offend. Like, do you like your mother? You don't ask them that. I'll just say, it looks like you and your mother have differences of opinion. It all depends on how you say it. And so I've learned how to talk to a person. There was one astrologer I was on, and his whole thing was shock value. Yeah, you're going to get hit by a truck next week. I wouldn't do that to a person. I just say, next week you just got to be a little careful when you're crossing the street. It's a whole way of how you say it without having to be shock value. In the Caribbean, they call it bacchanal, where it's drama. So, but I don't do drama well. Me, I always try to encourage people, because sometimes people, and Nick will have this experience, and other students of this, sometimes people are a little nervous. What are you going to say? Are you going to say something bad, or is it going to be evil? It's not about that. It acts as a guide to help you. And our role as numerologists, Nick and the family that we have, and other people I taught, it is to help people, not to tear them down. You have a breakup with your lady, you don't give her a bad reading and hope she messes up. You stay on the good side. Numerology has allowed me to deal with all ages of people, from the very, very young to babies to elders. I've read all kinds of people. I've read all some of the most famous people that have walked the planet, from Barry White to Luther Vandross. I mean, I've read all these people. I mean, I've been blessed to meet them. It's been nice. Jamie Foxx was really nice to meet. LA Cool J was very nice to meet. All these people I've been blessed to meet. It's just, and I still meet people. It's very, very nice. In fact, I did a report for Beyonce and Jay-Z, because they're both 4s. And I gave it to them, and they took it to them when they were out on, I forgot the island that everybody goes out to, out in Long Island. But I've done these things, and I love helping people. That is one of my things. And then I'm inquisitive, but I've learned to see things that other people don't see. And for example, if I get the birthdays of you, and once I ask the birthdays of the mom and dad, I can tell who looks like who. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Who would favor who? Who, whether the mother would favor this, or there'll be instances where the child's numbers don't look like nobody's in the family. So is it a mother's baby and a father's maybe, as they used to say? Okay. Little things like that. So either by sign or whatever the case is. So in the case of Nick, he's a 4. So it means one of his parents could have been an Aquarius. I think his mom, in fact, is an Aquarius. Okay. Yep. His dad may be another sign, but it's those kinds of things that helps me, that I haven't seen in any of the books I've got. And I've got books that's over 100 years old in my collection.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And I think you touched on exactly what I was thinking. I have a few numerology books. I've been into Barnes and Nobles and flipped through numerology books, and I have to say that yours is probably the most comprehensive one that I've picked up. It covers so much, so many areas, and
Well, you
that's
can
what
thank
really makes it
people.
stands
Well,
out.
see, you can thank people in the street for asking me those questions.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
there's always something to do. So in your case, now that you are officially, we do official anyway, because you were one of the few people that caught my errors when I do my shows. And I had to start giving Nick his props. Like, you know what I'm saying? Give the brother his props, because we're all going to make mistakes. And that's why I was telling Nick, when you make deliberate, intentional errors, that's one thing. But when they're unintentional, hey, we're all human. All of us are going to make an innocent mistake at some point, as long as it's not deliberate to really throw anybody in a bad way or whatever the case is. But it's all about how we help people. And so it's nice. And this testament actually is from the people in the streets. That's how this came about. Asking all kind of questions, and they didn't know. Okay, like for example, I developed a concept called the personal week. All right, that's never been done. And what happens is I have a good lead. All my best friends in the whole world, close friends, are Leos for whatever reason. And Lewis, my best friend, we was college, we were partners in crime, we did everything we shouldn't be doing, but nonetheless, he would be dating all these women. So naturally, I'm the person he calls on, and he says, "Well, what personal year they're in?" I say this, "What personal month? What personal day?" And I think one day he just got simply tired of me asking these questions. Then he says, "Well, what's the personal week?" I says, "There's no such thing as a personal week." He wanted to know why. And that's what led me. See, that's why I call my original book Numbers and You, because people don't know, but in their not knowing, they help me unravel some of the mysteries, the things I haven't seen in these books that I got in my collection. And that's what's going to happen to all of my students. That's why I teach them to be open-minded so they can learn. I remember when I was in school, the teachers at college says, well, the book gets an A, I as a teacher gets a B. That means the only thing you can get is a C. So what would motivate a student to be an A student, to get an A class? You know? So I don't take that philosophy. I keep an open mind. And I encourage all of them to find their niche. And I've had some of the students that graduated in my first class last year. I think I've had about half of them on the show with some more to go. And they've all done well. Sharon, like BTV, Melinda, they've all done, and Nick, my man, he was on the show. So, we got to do this. At least we should. That's my attitude. Yeah. Not about, well, I got this and he ain't got this. You don't grow like that. You'll never grow. And I'm still growing. I'm still learning. As long as I've been doing this, I'm still learning.
Yes, forever a student. And all hands on deck.
Yeah, because people want to say, well, you're an elder. No, I'm a student. See, an elder means you're supposed to sit at my feet and I'm supposed to tell you the whole history of 1,000 years. I ain't about that. I like learning. Give me a book. Okay. Let me read. Let me learn.
Yeah,
that's my attitude.
And it's keeping you young and sharp too.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. That's right.
Well, at some point you become a walk-in book. They even showed that concept in the book of Eli. Like these things become a part of us, integrated into us. And like you said, they would test you when you go out in the street. But I tell you like this, they could test you now and you wouldn't miss a beat. Probably you could predict some of the things they were going to ask just based upon what their numbers are. If I'm correct.
That's interesting, Roo, because a lot of times when I'm doing my shows, I'll come up with things that I read about a long time ago, but I can recall them and I can tie them in. You know what I'm saying? Weave them all together. So, for example, one of my favorites is the sinking of the Titanic in April of 1912, because J.P. Morgan, the famous financier born on April the 17th, was the owner of the White Star Line that owned and manufactured the Titanic. Well, on the day it set sail in April of 1912, he had, in fact, it set in April and it was due to land in New York City on April the 17th, his birthday. But he wasn't on it. He had the largest promenade. I mean, he owned the puppy, okay? So he had everything at his disposal, but he did not go. And what happens is, was I started doing research and reading, Evangeline Adams, born February the 8th, an astrologer, actually taught him in her book, The Bowl of Heaven. I have her original book, The Bowl of Heaven, that she was talked about how she actually taught J.P. Morgan astrology.
Wow.
And if she knew about Mercury retrograde, because see, when it set sail in April of 1912, Mercury went into retrograde in his sign of Aries, which rules accidents, explosions, crashes, injuries, things of that nature. And it crashed into the iceberg. And so yet he did not go. But the irony is, less than a year later, on March the 31st of 1913, J.P. Morgan died. It hadn't even been 1 year yet. You know how they celebrate the 1 year anniversary of the falling of the Twin Towers in 2001? Well, they were celebrating the anniversary, or the first year anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. And he died on March 31st, 17 days before his birthday, in his critical cycle.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. So the numerology helps me understand the history, weave it so I can tell it in a kind of a narrative or a story that makes it interesting. It's interesting to me.
Absolutely. I agree. It's just so amazing how being raised here in the United States, especially as Black and brown people, there's so much information we just did not know that, for example, like you said, we had people getting taught astrology, so it had to be happening somewhere in our communities too. We just never heard of it,
Well, we stayed under wraps because, see, under the 60s, don't forget, it was the demonstrations, the sit-ins and things like that. And who was the main basis? The churches. Martin Luther King's church here in New York, Adam Clayton Powell's church, other Y.T. Walker's church on 116th Street. So all of these were so that which I would do was considered blasphemous. I had an aunt that do like that when she see me in Virginia. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah. So,
oh wow.
So, but then there were those, and what we do, we almost like a silent society. You had to be in the in crowd to know those things, but it turned out to be interesting. Now it's nothing to Google numerology, astrology, palmistry, the tarot, etc., etc. Now it's like an open book.
Right.
Yep. Speaking of palmistry, I forgot to mention in the introduction that Lloyd is also a practitioner of palmistry as well.
Is that right? Oh my.
I love this. See, first of all, I love to observe. I love to pay, and I guess I got that from my parents, which is pay attention, okay, or situational awareness of what's going on around you. So one of the beauties is the study of the hands. The hands do everything that's humanly possible. It'll scratch your nose. It'll take out an ice cube. It'll cook your food. It'll hug, it'll caress. The hand does everything you want to. And so what happens is there is a thing about the hand. So I've learned how to not be caught up about how good looking a woman would be, how attractive she is. I mean, all that would help maybe. But if you look at the hands tell a whole lot about you. Even Napoleon, the general, once says the face may deceive, which means a woman can put on all the makeup on the face if she wants to look as gorgeous as she wants to. But when she puts out that hand and those lines are not correct, I don't care what she looks like. Inside, she's not correct. So that's why they say you can't judge a book by its cover. And that's how we're done. If a person comes up with a nice packaging, we'll go for it, not knowing there could be junk inside, nothing inside. But the packages. So I've learned how to get past what a person looks on the outside because, looks. Some of the greatest con artists are shirts and ties. They look legit. They look legit. They look official. And they the one that take you to the cleaners. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So they wouldn't trust the bum, but they'll touch a person with a shirt and tie. So I've learned how to go past what a person looks and looks can be deceiving. And
Absolutely.
as the elders used to say in Harlem, you can show me better than tell me.
Absolutely. 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 You know, I can say growing up late 60s, early 70s, you know, as close as introduction you would get to astrology would be in the daily news on Sunday. You would be able to go through, and they had these very commercial kind of you know readings for each zodiac sign. So in the evolution of what you've done, have you seen it gone? Have you seen where it was kind of commercial, then it was more custom, and then it went more back to cookie cutter, since we're in this very commercial age now?
Well, they do it more for entertainment. I was looking on Google. They says the most five sincerest signs, the most five evilest signs, and so they make it kind of like to kind of hook you in. But as I tell people, although they don't believe, it's interesting. I'll meet people that say, "I don't believe in astrology." I say, "What's your sign?" They say Capricorn. Okay, without even thinking, without even thinking. So although they may not believe in it, they still know their sign not to believe in it, which I think is interesting. So it's very paradoxical. I have gone through the ringers dealing with human beings. I really have, because human beings are something else. You know.
Yes. Yes. And that's one thing I think that I really appreciated when Nick would tell me about your work. It was so custom, it wasn't this just general kind of, you're a one, all ones in the world are this way, you're a two,
Mhm.
all twos in the world are this way. Even though you had some very general kind of descriptions for those numbers, you went in so deep and into detail about other things that it made you realize there was so much more to know.
Yes, and that was the emphasis I put on my very first group. There were 10 students that came into my first class. All of them did exceptionally well. All of them are going to bring their own skill set. Some are strong in this area, strong in that area. But the point is, as they evolve and grow, they'll find their own niche. So it's like me when I got all these tons of books, and I'm saying, well, why should I write a book? What is there to write about? But I came up with all these concepts. The students will come up with all their concepts too. And when they're on my show, I don't say, well, this is my student. When Nick was on, when Melinda was on, when Shawnee was on, when Portia was on, when Miss Kimberly, all them on, it was not about they're my students. Because when did they grow? I had to start somewhere. They got to start somewhere.
Right.
Okay. And it ain't about, well, I'm Lloyd Strayhorn, I'm better than them, but here they are. No,
Right.
you got to give them a chance to get their face in the sun. That's how I deal with it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I want to talk about the books a little bit more. And
Go right ahead.
yeah, a few minutes ago
I love books. I love books. Go right ahead.
yeah. So a few minutes ago you mentioned writing a report for Jay-Z and Beyonce, and you
Yes.
happen to have included some of that in this book.
That's
So
right. That's
why
exactly
don't you
right.
tell us about how this book came about, and what people can find in this work, Lloyd's Book of Numbers, a numerology guide for the 21st century and beyond.
And beyond, notice.
And
Okay.
beyond.
And beyond. Because until hopefully we don't blow ourselves the kingdom come. And if we don't, well, man will always be here. But what happens is, what I noticed that, first of all, that is Beyonce, is born on the 4th of September. Jay-Z is born on the 4th of December. They even had the Roman numeral 4 sketch in their hands. Everything about them were fours. Their first daughter is named Blue, 4 letters. Okay, a lot of things they did when they started dating, the time they married, and whatnot like that. Then I did a piece on Elijah Muhammad, the founder of the Nation of Islam. I did a piece on Martin Luther King, whose birthday is going to be celebrated, and whatnot. I tried to take examples from public figures, entertainers, politicians, and things of that nature. But the point is that 4 in and of itself is always odd and unusual, whether it's expressed as a 4 or a 13 or a 22 or a 31. It's so interesting. I had a couple of readings today. They were both 4s. Okay. I see he marked the pages too.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
Jay-Z Beyonce
Yeah.
page.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and in fact, when Beyonce, see, first of all, Beyonce was known as, what was they call it? The Destiny's Child, right?
Yes, Destiny's Child.
Well, see, they thought there were 3, but when I met her at the radio station in the 80s, there were 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I got an autograph. They autographed a picture that would suit me. You know what I'm saying? So it just shows you how 4s have followed her all the way. And 4's going to follow people. Everybody has a number that will follow them. So in your case, Rue, the number 2 will follow you in some way, shape, or form. So I know that, for example, I can go back to years like I'll go back to 1981, 82, 84, 87. I'll go back to 1990, 91, 93, 96. Then I can go to 1999, 2000, 2000, and all these years I'm calling in my head. All those years add up to all of your numbers, either a 1 or a 2 or a 4 or a 7. And the beauty of it is I can project the past, live in the past, I can project the future. So if somebody says, okay, Lloyd, so if you're so smart, what will be the personal year in 4140? It's going to be a 9 personal year, a 9 universal year. Although you and I will never see that. Hopefully the earth will still be here, but it'll be a 4 universal year. I mean, a 9 universal year. Because 4 plus 1 plus 4 plus 0 is 9. It's just that simple. So I'll have people who say, well, I need a 5-year forecast. It's simple. As long as I know that. Now, all you do is to get that personal year, you take the month and day they're born and add to the year in question. So we all have milestones. When we graduated, got married, had children, got your first car. Everybody's got different milestones that are very significant to them. But whatever it is, if you can remember the year, that will tell you. And things tend to be cyclical like the seasons. Okay? This is why birds know when to fly to Capistrano, fish know when to swim upstream, herds know when to migrate from north to south, but they're doing it on nature's clock. But we men, we feel we're controlling everything, but we have ours too. So what I do when I talk to clients is let them know, just as birds and bees and everything have their seasons, God has given us a season too. And I try to demonstrate it by taking them to a Q&A session. And you'd be amazed as they begin to underscore and to their months and days and dates. It's like, and I don't ask not one personal, private, or intimate question, not one, but enough to get them to see that there is order in their universe. So you can be in the right place at the right time, because everybody knows it. Like, yo, man, Rue is in the wrong place at the wrong time. But how can she be in the right place at the right time? So I know that Sundays and Mondays and the minor way Wednesdays are your best days. And all dates such as the 1st, the 2nd, the 4th, the 7th, the 10th, the 11th, the 13th, the 16th, etc. These are your dates. And your best months would always be in February, June, July, August. These would always be important times for you. Your challenging times would always be somewhere around January, April, May, October, November. We all have highs and lows.
Right. It's so funny you mentioned that, because I was going to say that a lot of times when you hear people talk about numerology and even astrology, they always talk about, they tend to, besides the people that want to do shock factor, you find the other ones who want to tell you all the rainbows and lollipops. And so it's just like, it would help to know, I feel it would help to know what are challenging years, because just myself personally, I've had some years where it was just like, what crazy, even right? Am I? Like, what? Yeah. Where am I? What am I? What is going on in the universe? And Nick and I were just talking about this. Like, it gets frustrating because there are so many books. Well, I'm a big book collector too. That's how Nick and I fell for you. That's how we fell into each other's presences through books. And so it's like you buy all of these books, and it's just like, I'm just not getting the answer though. I'm not feeling the answer is here. And so something so straightforward like yours, and something that you can keep returning to like yours, is a refreshing thing. That is very refreshing.
But you know what I find interesting about what you said about Nick? That's how we met in Newark at the Source of Life bookstore.
Yes.
And he brought his book.
Yes.
I had published that book in '87. He came in with that book. I autographed that puppy.
Was you even born, Nick?
No, yeah, not yet. Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Like Nick wasn't even a twinkle. He was really a twinkle.
Yeah, I've been doing this a minute. But you know, the nicest thing is now I see people. I was in Maryland about a couple of months ago, and the lady showed me notes that I gave her for reading in 1993.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I had a couple call me and said that I gave them a marriage date back in 2006, and they still married to this day, and how much she's loving her husband. In fact, every person whose date I got for marriage is still married. There was only one person, and that's because their wife died of an illness. But other than that, everyone I gave the dates are still married. Not to, you know, we always have our rough patches. Everybody's going to have their rough patches, but over and above that, they're still married.
You know what? Speaking of that, Lloyd, speaking of marriage, why don't you tell us about this book?
Oh. That book came into being because everybody wanted to know about how do I find my soulmate? How do I do this? And how do I do that? And what happens is I explain it by the way of I gotta watch you, Nick. Thank you. I forget all about these books.
I try to tell people, nobody believe me. You gotta watch Nick. You gotta watch him.
So, you know, it was because people either want to know about their money and definitely about relationships. So, Nick, you will find that more than likely the question will always be boyfriend, girlfriend, or how do I make my money, or whatever the case is. Health is normally at the very bottom at the list. Travel is at the bottom of the list, but normally up there is their money, their relationships, and their career. So that's what I did. And I put it into a simple form by putting it by numbers that are very friendly to each other, numbers that are antagonistic to each other. I put the best times for marriage, the best times for births, pregnancies. I found that when women had, yes, it's a cosmic blueprint to happiness and joy. That's the subtitle I gave it. So no one is perfect. I've never met any couple that didn't have moments of disagreements or whatever the case is. It's just how you're going to work it through and the attitude. So nowadays it's like, well, if you don't like that, you go home to your mother, as against trying to work things through. Because nothing's perfect, you know what I'm saying? And it's just a matter of attitude. But that is what I did. And also I put in that book too on children, how to understand and appreciate your child, because don't forget, yes, we are adults in this session, but we were once all children.
Yes.
See what I'm saying? And a lot of times we forget those experiences in our childhood, but now we become adults and we think we know everything, and the more we know everything, the less we know. So I'm kind of like a kid. I mean, I know how old I am and I know I should grow up, but I like my attitude. I like being like a kid. Yeah, because children learn. Children are open to learn. But when you get to adults and you think you know everything, you stop growing. So I understand when they want to call me an elder, I respect that. But I'm a student. I'm going to always be a lifelong student.
Yes.
And the more I teach, the more I learn. So when I taught this group, I came up with some other concepts that I'm going to put in my other book, thanks to a colleague of mine that suggested, why don't you write a book that did this? So I learn, and I teach. And in teaching, you learn. So that's it. And the fact that Nick is a teacher, he's learning about his craft, how to be better in communicating the rules of English, so they can be better writers or better students in writing. And one of those students are probably going to, yes, I remember I was in Mr. Westbrook's class and he taught me about this, and now they don't want a Pulitzer Prize. Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah. I can see that for sure.
See what I'm saying?
I can see that for sure.
We all do that. Yeah. So the more you teach, the more you learn.
You know, it's funny because, you know, you mentioned relationships, Nick, before. Right? You know, I have my list of questions. So that was one of my questions about how people, you know, they always usually seeking things about romance and finance. You know, for me, health is at the top of my question list, and and usually everything else kind of falls under that. And so I was wondering, because you talked about the people who are still married, have you ever been able to tell a person when they would get married? Like if a single person came to you and they said, well, will I ever get married, or when am I going to find my one? What would you tell them?
Well, we all have relationship cycles. And once you know the nature of the relationship cycles, what that means, that increases, there's a better than average chance of you meeting somebody or getting married or getting engaged or getting involved with someone like that. You know, it's understanding these cycles, and these cycles I've got from all the thousands and thousands of people I've read over all these decades of doing this. And so what it does is it helps me say this. There's a woman said she would be pregnant, and she said, I told her, I said, I did. She said, yeah, she got the recording to prove it. So I mean, I read so many people, but I do this. But there are cycles for your health, cycles for travel, cycles for money, cycles for love. Definitely.
Wow. Awesome.
And when you talk about health, the number 2 is the health number. Finicky. Let me tell you like this. Let's say, Roo, I took you out on a date, right? And the first date was to Mickey D's. Trust me, it's going to be the last date, because your attitude is you could do the dollar meal. I don't even think they got a dollar meal anymore, all by yourself. But if I took you to a nice restaurant with ambiance and great food, and thus seeing 2 people like to dance and whatnot, even if you don't dance, but see them dancing, I have a better chance, because 2, if you look at how the 2 is written, one day I was sitting here at my desk, my table, and I wrote the 2, and I said, wow, it's shaped like the stomach. So number 2, people, I know if you have any concerns, it's always with the stomach and digestive tract, sensitivities with the reproductive organs, or female problems as you would describe it to me, finicky or fussy about your eating. 2s are normally your diet. You're vegetarians, semi-vegetarians. They got strict diets. They don't eat no pork, whatever the case is like that. And they're very
much so.
And sometimes they'll even smell their food. They'll even smell their food before they eat it.
I love food that come after books. I love and then I love books about food.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
I do. I was just talking to my daughter before, who is Aries. She's April 7th, 96. We were talking about how her friend had just made a cheesecake, and she said, well, my mom, she just sits down and she binges like all the baking shows. And it's not even that I want to do all the baking. I just love knowing the recipes. I love knowing techniques. I love learning new things. And, my love for books, I thank my mom, Leo, July 23rd. I thank her because she just gave us that passion and that love for books of all kinds. Now, the one thing I don't read are romance novels, but I am a big romantic.
That's what women like. That's what women like. But yet the irony is you are romantic.
I am very romantic.
And I always tell a person with a woman, they need a hug at least twice a day.
Oh, child. Can somebody volunteer to give me some hugs? I'm like 10 years short. Hello. Thank you. That's a lot of hugs.
and see, it don't have to be actually physical. It could be like, you could be at a job and I say, you know what, Roo, if it wasn't for you, you saved the day today. You wouldn't mind staying a little extra at work or coming a little early the next day into work. But to feel loved and appreciated is a very strong 2 factor.
It is.
Yeah. So
feeling appreciated is very important.
Appreciated. Even a bum wants respect in the street.
Yes.
I'll say, excuse me. One time I was walking and I passed this by there's something, and I said, excuse me. And the guy says, why you say that to him? That could have been us in the street. You understand what I'm saying? Yep. We could have been that bum.
Yeah.
So these are the things that my parents taught me. You want for other people what you want for yourself.
Yes.
So if you want some goodness, you got to show goodness. You want some love, you got to show love. That's it. And so, and the nice thing about my parents had no education. And maybe that's the best kind of education in a sense.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Less poison to get rid of. Less poison to get rid of. We've talked about that several times on this platform. One of the books that I loved when I first read it, I loved it and I hated it, was Lies My Teacher Told Me, because it was like
I got
all the
that book in my
lies, right?
collection. I got that book in my collection.
Of course you do.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just like I remember just like looking and feeling like crying and just so intrigued at the same time, because I'm like, oh, that make more sense. Okay. Because sometimes it has to, I tell people like this: if you can make it make sense to me, and that's something I learned through astrology. Now, I haven't really looked at it in the numerology yet, except for what Nick has taught me so far. But just knowing that as long as you can make it logical and I can get my mind around it, then I can deal with. But if it's based on pure emotion or just whatever, I can't do it with you. I needed to number. I needed to math.
Yeah.
I needed to make sense. And the funny thing is, math is something I ran from like the plague when I was in school.
Me too. As somebody says, Lloyd, you would write a book and deal with numbers. I was the worst math student in school. I really, but that's the irony. See, this is what I'm telling you about how life is. I got a lot of D's in school, and my attitude was D was for dynamic. It was for dummy. It was for dynamic. So it all depends on how we look at our half a glass of water, half full, half empty. I got a lot of D's. I was very dynamic in school.
I know that's right. I know that's right. For all the fantastic people watching, for all the fantastic people watching, dynamic. See what I'm saying? There's levels to this thing. There's levels.
Yeah. I never got A's. I never remember getting A's.
Wow.
I was either average C. I think C plus was about as high as I went. So had somebody said, Lloyd, you would write books, they would be all over the world. You'd have thousands of students in every continent on United in the world. You do this, you'd be on all the top TV shows. You have a radio show for 20 years. You write for the New York Amsterdam News for 20 years and this, that, and the other. And then I had a syndicated column in 140 newspapers. I just said, man, you're talking to the wrong person. You ain't talking to me. But that's exactly what happened. So because a person don't make an A in school, it's about making an A in life.
That part.
You see what I'm saying? Absolutely. And if you do make an A, just say, well, that was a dynamic lesson to learn, so I can go toward the B and A category.
Yes.
And I had some D's in life too. I said, man, Lloyd, you should have kept your job, okay?
But then you wouldn't have all this time to dedicate to your loving students.
Exactly.
We gotta weigh things sometimes. I tell you. Nick and I were just talking about that too. Like, you gotta balance it out. Sometimes the money's not worth it.
Yeah.
Just the piece of being able to do what it is you love. That makes all the difference. And for Aquarians, we love to help people. So that's our big thing. We love to help. And so that's definitely something I learned more about just in some of the books that Nick has shared with me over the years. And let me just say, he always talks about how you encourage them to just continue to seek, like even when they have what they think is a concrete kind of answer, you encourage them to look deeper and look deeper. Is that from the experience of doing it so long, or is that from the intuition that you pull from?
Well, it's a little of both, but based upon the experience, because in my experience of doing this, I develop concepts. So why can't they? Right. But I don't say, well, this is the only way you can do it. I will say this is the way I do it, but I always leave doors open so they can express their individuality. All these concepts, somebody had to come up with these concepts. Okay. Right. So if that was the case, there'd only be one numerology book and that's it. There are tons of numerology books. I bought some books last week on numerology. Ooh. As many as I got. You think the last thing I need is to bring some more numerology books up in here. But this is what I encourage my students. And I, like when I tell them when they're on the show, what I'm going to talk about, whatever that part is that you taught that fascinates you, That's what you speak about first, but you got to get started.
Yep.
They all need a chance to
part
get started. But if I'm so selfish that I'm the baddest numerologist on the planet, which I am, thank you, but
Right.
not in an ego sense. But after my body of work, I then look back and said, Lloyd, not bad. But I'm saying to get them to be open so they can be the baddest numerologist on the planet too. That's all.
Well,
There's
Mr.
always room at the
Westbrooks
top.
Mr. Westbrooks is on his way. I call him the magnanimous one. That's my
Well, I already
partner in
asked him
crime
about.
right there.
I think he had just got out, and I says, "When you gonna write a book?" You know, he says he's
every time.
and it's at a time just like me. But when it comes out, it's gonna be nice. I'm gonna support me. Gonna be back on the show. I'm gonna get an autographed copy.
Yes, yes.
You know how I do. That's how I do.
Yes.
I'll get an autographed copy, and I always support the my students. I'll go to their classes, their workshops, whatever is there. I show support to help them and encourage them. That's you know, we all need encouragement. Everybody needs encouragement. We're so busy, but it's been part of the programming in this culture for us to knock each other down, not build each other up. But once you understand that, then you kind of take the high road, as I like to do. Nobody's perfect. No one.
Right.
I haven't met a perfect soul on the planet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Never will.
Right. Listen. Roo has about 150, incomplete books over there too. So,
well, Roo, you need to write a book, and she would do well with poetries too.
I used to write poetry,
Yeah,
but it was so sing-songy. My mother. It was so funny because my mother was like my greatest drive to want to do certain things, and it was also like, I'm going to do this despite what she say, and every time I would have an issue, I would write a poem and like stick it under her pillow, or I would write a letter and I would put it by her bed or something, right? So one day she comes out the room and she like, oh, we got another letter from the poet, and I was like, oh, she don't like my poetry, so I'm not going to write no more. You know what I'm saying? And so Nick and I were talking about, I just had a major move and I was going through one of those thousands of notebooks. And like when I'm reading, it's from like 1986. And it's like, life is cloudy and dark. And I'm in despair.
But see, that's the beauty of poetry, to catch those feelings in the moment.
Absolutely.
And then when you begin to go up the road of life and look back, it shows you what stages you were in that sense, emotionally or mentally or spiritually. And it helps you evolve. And you'd be surprised that if we all kind of held on to some of our writings or schoolwork, it kind of reflects what kind of childhood we had, what stages of our development we have. But we become adults and then we get caught up in 9 to 5s and paying bills and drama and all this other stuff. We kind of miss the point of those things are innately that we were endowed with and should take advantage of if possible.
Thank you for that, because you brought me back to one of the questions I had when you were talking about people in relationships and things like that and having babies. Do you find often, or have you had many parents come to you once their child is born to ask you to do forecasts for them to better understand how to raise them?
Many, which is why in the book that Nick has showed you about, the book on Lloyd's book relationship guide, I have a thing in there about children to help parents understand their child. Okay. Because don't forget, we are adults, but we were once children. Because number 2 children, like you're born on the second, normally they are the crybabies in the group. They're very sensitive in the beginning. They love the hug. Normally 2 children are the last one to get kicked out the bed. That all the other brothers and sisters be on their own rooms. But that 2 always go stay up in that bed with their mom. They say, get up out of here and go in your room, girl. So if you were one of them, that would make all the sense in the world, because 2s are very sensitive. And there's
it's funny how you talked about your experiences that shape you and kind of change the position you kind of go in, because I used to be very sensitive when I was a child. And then I went through like an 18-year period where I didn't cry. It was like I had no emotions, like just they were just like turned off. And then one day they all turned on at the same time again. And it was like I couldn't stop crying all the time, no matter what I was doing. And I was like, what is this? Why is this water coming out my
Yeah,
face?
we go through phases. We go through phases.
Absolutely.
That's the evolution of life. That's how we grow.
Absolutely. And would you be able to see something like that in a person's numbers, like that they'll have these kind of, you know, like I had that long period where I just didn't feel anything versus the sensitivity I was actually born with. So can you see things like that?
To a degree, because it's revealed in your name, because they know you as Roo, R-O-O. Well, numerically under the Chaldean system, that adds a 16, 7. 7 is a water number, meaning feelings, depths, misunderstood, very individualistic. It tells me you can be very sarcastic too. But you always a seeker of knowledge and wisdom and understanding, which is the nature of a 7.
Thank you. Yes, that's very true. Very sarcastic people. Very sarcastic. It's the love language.
Yeah, well, yeah. When you get two 7 people together.
Oh my goodness. You know, I don't know. I think sometimes our snark comes out because it makes us giggle. We are like children very much in that way.
Yeah.
We are. Well, Nick, let's get back to you, because you know I got questions for it. I can talk to this brother forever, so I'm gonna let you jump in here because we'll be here all night.
Yeah, well, I have one more book that Lloyd could tell us about. You know, give us the history and the background on, and that would be this one.
Yeah, that's Lloyd's Numbers and You workbook. That shows people how to understand numerology, the way I teach it, how to understand it, how the specific about the numbers, the nature of the numbers, because every number has its own energy or frequency. These are some of the terms they use that they bring to the school of life. And the rule is, oh yeah, I see you've done some work on yours.
Yeah,
it wasn't joking. Yeah. And what happens is I teach people that look, you know how women will say a detergent or a product is concentrated, which means it's got extra strength. Well, every time a number is repeated more in the birthday, like let's say you got somebody born 11/11/1911, they have nothing but ones going through that birthday. Or you got somebody born 2/22/1922. So just as you got numbers repeating through a birthday, you got letters by way of numbers repeated in a name. So the more a number is repeated, like the name Lucille, for example, it's add up to a 2, but yet it's got about 5 3s in the name. So I would then read the person with the number that repeats itself the most. The 2 would be more the superficial kind of projection, but the real one would be how much often a number is repeated in a name. So if I see a woman, for example, with a lot of 1s in the name or other strong odd numbers in the name, they have strong personalities. So sometimes people think they like trying to be bossy, dominant, tell them what to do. But any person that has a lot of 1s and 9s, especially women, they are going to speak their truth. You know what I'm saying? So then it becomes not finding a male, but in the case of those kind of women, finding a man, which is a totally different energy. Because you got a lot of males out here, but the men are not as predominant as they used to be because they're trying to project men to be soft. We're not designed to be soft.
No.
We are builders. We are hunters and gatherers. Excuse me. Okay. Yes. Can you see a guy on a construction site? Oh, I broke my nail. Okay, come on.
Oh, like they do in football now. Okay.
Yeah, come on, get out of here.
I hurt my pinky. My toe got turf toe. What? Get out of here. Go sit down. You making $30 million.
On top of that, too, you better flex them muscles, okay? Come on.
You know, I'm like, gee whiz. You know, I was gonna ask you this. When people see patterns in their life, like incidents that seem to happen to them over and over again, can you also see that reflected in their numbers, like you were talking about all of those 3s and 2s and things like that?
Because that's why I take them through a Q&A. What I do is this: when I read a client or anyone, I'll tell them to have a pen and paper so they can take notes. These notes are your numbers, your days, your dates, your months, and even sometimes your years. Then I'll ask them questions to begin to underscore. And you will be amazed how all of a sudden the expression is they underscore this one, they'll underscore this date, they'll underscore that date. There's certain patterns that tend to run in all of us. We all have patterns. It's just a matter of acknowledging and, or more importantly, recognizing it so we know when the tide is at our favor or the tide is against us and we act accordingly. So knowledge is power in all kinds of ways, more than we know.
Absolutely.
Good question, Roo.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm born on Groundhog's Day, so my daughter calls it groundhogging. That's what she calls. She says, "Oh, mommy, you're groundhogging again," and I'm like, "What?" She said, "You did this already. You said this already. You did," and I'm just like, "Oh." Okay.
You know what? I call the number 2. The people will sometimes chastise the 2 because they said they get caught up in the minutiae, the details. I call the number 2 the nuts and bolts of life. Here's what I'm saying. I'm sitting at this chair by this table. You take the nuts and bolts out of these tables and screws, guess what? I'm on the floor. So it's the nuts and bolts, those little things that hold up the big things. They just don't get no credit for being there until you actually remove them. And by the way, what month and day is your daughter born?
The one that I was talking about, she's April 7th.
Well, your numbers are the 2, the 7, the 4, and the 1. Her numbers are the 7 and the 2 and the 6. So since I'm hearing the 6 on that side, which is not on your side, that means could the father either be a Taurus or a Libra or born on the 6th, the 15th, or the 24th? You know what I'm saying? Or having a 6. And what's the father's birthday?
28th of October.
October. So his numbers would be the 1, 4, and 9.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be his numbers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The year she was born in?
She was 96.
That's the year of the 7, because 1996 adds up to 25, and 2 plus 5 is 7. See, that's why I like to ask these questions. Then I'll pick out the numbers, and it shows, yeah, that was the time that she was born. And it was she was born again in April 7th.
The year she was born, it actually was a state of emergency in New Jersey. It was Easter Sunday, and the roads got shut down because it snowed, and it hadn't snowed in April in years. So we call her the
time
Christ.
They have the snow on that day, right?
We call her the Christ. Yes, we do.
But you know what's interesting, because see, I made mention that your best months are February, June, July, August primarily. But if you conceived her in April, you actually got pregnant with her in July, one of your months. You see what I'm saying? So I can tell. So I got my own ways of how to do things. But anyway,
I love it. I love it. And it's funny because I only have 2 girls, and they're 10 years apart.
Birthday? What's the other girl's birthday?
June 1st, 86.
And see, there's June is one of your numbers. I said your numbers are months of February, June, July, August. And so in this case, your numbers are the 2, 7, 4, and 1. And she's born on a 1. So that tells me you got daughters different as night and day. One is a 7, which is very low key, very analytical, like to be her own best company. And then you got one that's out there. And the one that's out there with the 1 is the one that probably either wears glasses or need to wear glasses or have sensitive eyes to bright sunlight, because the left eye is a little bit more sensitive than the right.
She was just talking about her eyes.
Yeah, see.
That's so funny.
No, but it shows you how scientific numerology is. That's all it is.
Yes. Well, one of the things you said that
science versus a belief.
Sorry.
Huh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, one of the things that made me giggle when you first started talking about the knowing the numbers and telling you who the child looks like. I don't know what thread I got going on, but every one of my children look exactly like me.
Yeah, but they got your numbers.
The boys and the girls.
You got a boy too?
I got 5 boys.
All right. All right. None of my business, okay? I'm just saying.
I said I was very romantic.
Yes. But then I could tell you which child looks more like you, which child looks more like the father. But in the case of just both your girls, for example, one is a 7, that's one of your numbers. The other one was a 1, that's one of your numbers too. And the one that's on June the 1st is coming out of not only one of your numbers, but one of your months as well. So I would say of the two, she even looks more like you than the one that's April 7th, because she's got 2 of your entities, where your daughter born April 7th only got 1, which is the date of birth.
That is
So I can tell
absolutely
to what
true.
degree. But all of this I've learned, I didn't learn this in any books. See, this is why I try to keep my students open so they can make their own discoveries. That's how discoveries are made.
That
Okay?
is amazing. I
Yeah,
love it. I
yeah,
love it.
Very much so. Yeah.
I love it. This is everything I knew it would be and more. You know, when we picked this date, when we were looking at the calendar for 2025, and I saw the ones, I was like, Nick, and he was like, I know. And we was like,
Yep.
what better person to have with us than someone who can explain to us one. Let's just let us know what's going on.
yeah.
Let us know what's going on, because it is definitely interesting. All of this is, and like I said, I think I had found out about you years ago, and you hear people talk about the lectures, because you remember we used to go to lectures.
Yeah.
We used to actually go out the house, and so in doing that, I had heard about you on the lecture circuit and things like that.
I did a lot
but
of
it was when Nick came into my space, and we came into each other's space, that he started to show me your books and talk about how they were helping him and the things that he was learning. And then before he even thought about taking the class, we talked about that and what he expected to get from it. And he was just so excited, and I'm so excited for him. And I'm proud of him for doing all this work.
I'm telling you, the brother is just getting started. He's got his own name. He's got his own domain name. He's now featuring his own show, Numeral Analytics. I mean, it's just he's just growing. It hasn't even been 6 months. Really, it hasn't been 6 months yet.
And let's not forget, Nick is a 22 day and 12 of
exactly right.
12/22.
That's right. He's got all those 2s. So that means Nick is a super sensitive guy, no matter who it is, whether it's a male or female. That's why I was saying, if a person is born February the 22nd, 1922, I know that person, whether male or female, regardless of the religious, the gender, the ethnicity, the economic strata, they would exhibit. Numbers don't lie, as they said in Hidden Figures, the movie.
Yes.
Numbers don't lie. It's just,
yes.
The key is the art of interpretation. And that's why I was telling my students the way they were taught in my class, that they would have to be around other numerologists to see at the level that they are at. They're not, these students are at very high levels. Nick is at a very high level. In fact, Nick, I think, was one of the first ones to sign up. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. And, when we first mentioned it on Live with Lloyd, I'm like, oh yeah, I was waiting on this.
Fact, he was the first one of the students that I had on my show. That was on December the 4th. Yeah.
What an honor.
And then I had Queen Bee on the 11th. Yep, and then on the 22nd, I had Sharon.
Yep.
So it was just nice. And I've got other students to go too. I want all of them to be a part of this show. All of them.
Wonderful.
So they can
well, Nick, talking about that, do we have any questions from the audience, or anybody's chiming in down there? Because we can keep going. We don't even know.
Well, a lot of the family.
Yep. They're just the family's still hanging out with
love.
us.
They're showing the love and support.
Yep, just showing the love and support. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay,
yep, just showing the love and the support.
Like I said, we can.
Though. And in fact, he just did Nick just did a piece on the 9 per universal year. Nick, why don't you explain that?
I just did. That was actually our other family members that did the 9 universal year. I did the 1 universal month.
Queen Bee.
Yeah, Queen Bee. Queen Bee and Kimberly that did the 9 universal year.
Yeah.
I did my I did my month. I did my one universal month for January. I included the number 9 because January adds up to the word January adds up to a number 9 in the Pythagorean system. So I did incorporate the number 9.
See, that's another thing I like, because I've heard people, but I never heard them break down the month like you did. See, so you bring another concept. You see, this is what I'm talking about. But you got to let a student find their niche. You can't say, well, this is the only way to do it, because that narrows their thinking. Like the professor in college that says, the book gets an A, I get a B, and you don't get none but a C. So why should I be motivated to go beyond that?
Right.
Why? Yeah, no. And I thought that was cool that he added another component to the universal month, which is examining the month in and of itself. I thought that was cool. You go, Nick.
I picked that one up from King Simon, because he loves breaking down those words and those phrases.
Simon has issues, and by the way, he's an Aquarius like us too.
Oh, that says it all.
He's born one day before you. He's born February 1st.
Oh, cool. We love to seek. We love to know. Our key phrase in astrology is "I know." So if we can't know, we don't want it. We don't want to think. We don't want to believe. We don't want to guess. We want to know.
And when you talk about the master number 22, as you mentioned about Nick, the master number 22 rules the sign of Aquarius. And who was the first person he met? King Simon and Aquarius, then me and Aquarius. So it just shows. And who was the teacher? And Aquarius.
Wow.
So it's all this is connected, but we're not taught how to see the connections with things, but everything is connected.
That's right.
Everything.
So that's why the world gets smaller. The more you know, in that sense.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I am excited. I will say that numerology has always been a little intimidating for me for some reason.
It's so easy.
But
it's so easy.
For whatever reason, I'm drawn to the numbers. And I was telling Nick, just like with astrology, numerology is very intuitive for me. Like I'll see numbers and words will happen for me, or colors, or songs will come to me sometimes when I see certain numbers. And so the fascination people have with these angel numbers now is like I always saw that when we were growing up and we were playing punch card. We were playing punch card in the back of the car. I was looking at license plates like, oh, it's all those twos on there. Oh, it's all those fours on there.
But see, don't forget the Aquarius is ruled by the master number 22. And 2 + 2 is 4, and 4 has a dominion over numbers. So you might not say you're the greatest math students like we were in school, but there's always going to be some connections we have with numbers. Remembering birthdays, anniversaries, this, that, and the other. That's how it's going to be.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. It's just also exciting. It makes, I tell people that I really feel like even with everything that's going on, this is one of the greatest times to be alive. Everything is so open, and you can, it's kind of wild because it's so open, you know what I mean? But at the same time, there's a level of comfort knowing that if I say I want to study pebbles, nobody's gonna look at me like, well, why are you studying pebbles? And which, by the way, I study rocks. That comes after food and books is rocks.
But I got a bunch of rocks. But that's the point of finding your passion. Yes. And so this is why I tell people, if they want to find a hobby, I came up with this concept. It's a 3-part list. The first list is everything you've been wanting to do ever since you can remember. The only caveat is don't have none of your friends around. Girl, rocks ain't for you. And girl, you can't do this, you can't do this. But see, you don't know that. And so from that first list, you then break it into a second list. Okay, of all these crazy things I want to do, which of these things can feed my family, raise my kids, pay my bills? But the third one comes from the second list of all these things. If I didn't get paid, this is what I would love to do. And when you find that, you found your passion. And that's what I did with numbers. That's how it was. So it was an inverted way. I've had good jobs. I sold for fashion magazine, TV, all the kinds of. I had all kinds of insurance companies, but it's this. And if you call me at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I get up, roll the sleep out of my eyes, grab my pen and paper, I'm ready to go. So that's where
Yes.
you find your passions.
Yes.
Oh, and Sharon says she collects rocks too, and she's a 4, which is an Aquarius energy.
Hey, baby, listen, sis, I got some beautiful rocks. If you ever want to show our collection, I got some beautiful rocks. I tell you. You know, I've just had so much fun with this, and like I said, I had a bunch of questions that were kind of more just interviewee kind of questions, but they were, you answered them all basically just in telling us these stories, and I really love that. I did have a question though about the financial part, right?
Yes.
Because I remember brother C. Freeman Ill, he was down in Pennsylvania, down in Philly, and he was given a lecture that day, and he mentioned when he was small about the people running numbers. And I remembered one of the things he mentioned. He said you couldn't find a Black and Brown family without a dream book in it, a number book in it, or one of these things, And I thought about my stepfather, who's a Capricorn, and this man used to hit the picket like nobody's business. Just he would get the money and it would run out his hand, and he would get the money and it would run out his hand. But it was so funny because he would literally wait until we wake up. He'd be like, "What you dream about? What color was it?" And he would sit there and take that book and go through and do the numbers. Do you have people who come in looking for a way to do these things, like
Yes,
stocks and all
I've
that
had
kind
a
of
couple
stuff
of
like that?
people. I've had a woman in Chicago hit a number for about. In fact, she was on TV. She even sent me the video. She was holding up a check for about $200,000.
All right.
And she was born on September the 28th. And I was telling her how to play the numbers, and it just happened that it worked like that. I don't. If I knew how to hit numbers, we wouldn't be doing this show. I'd be on some cruise somewhere, a pina colada in another hand. You know what I'm saying? Laying back on the cot and all that stuff. But
We just said you'd be laying back writing another book, right?
oh yeah, no question about that. I'd be like really funning and sunning. But it's interesting because Casper Holstein, a brother from the Caribbean, was really the founders of the numbers game in Harlem. He was born on December the 7th, okay? And when he came to Harlem, I think he was born in St. Croix. He was the one. He actually worked on Wall Street as a janitor. See, you sound like if I left that part out, he said, "Oh, he's on Wall Street." Yeah, but he was a janitor. And he figured out how to do the numbers. And it was the numbers that saved a lot of our people in our communities. And so you had number runners. They used to take numbers in my father's barbershop. I mean, funeral parlors, liquor stores, beauty salons, you name it. Numbers was taken. Stores,
Yes.
everywhere, number holes and whatnot. And then,
Yes.
in the late 1970s, that's when the New York got into lottery, and they've been making money ever since. But basically, you can still play a number in the street. You still get played 6-1. But it was Casper Holstein who was the one that is credited with introducing the numbers game in Harlem, especially during the 20s and the period of the Depressions.
Wow.
And he was December 7th, the number 7 of all people.
Wow.
And in fact, in Harlem, there is the Holstein building. There's a building here in Harlem in his name.
Wow.
And in fact, his number hole used to be right down the block from where I live at here in Harlem.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. He would give out scholarships. And see, there was a difference in that day versus these modern hustlers, or whatever you want to call them, if you call them that, because the number runners would pay the elders rent. They sent a lot of kids who went to school who became doctors, lawyers, judges. The number runners paid that. The number runners used to send the kids in Harlem. Now, I was one of those kids. They send us to Peg Leg Beach. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they did a lot of things for the community. Of course, they all talk about Bumpy Johnson, but it was the Dragon Lady, Madam Queen, that brought Bumpy Johnson under her wing, and he was a Scorpio, October 31st. And so a lot of the things we were credited for, but in terms of helping each other, but the numbers game changed everything for us in Harlem, and it was fun. And yes, everybody had a dream book. And when you mentioned that, a dream book, I remember when I would go to church with my mother, and I was little then, but I would hear them talk about, oh, that hymn number looks good. See, because you had the hymn of the Sunday, the hymns you was gonna play. I mean, sing. See what I said?
Yes.
Gonna play the hymn numbers. I'm telling you, all any kind of way. Well, Ching Chow, he's holding his face this way and his arm is that way. So we played it. I mean, they had this scientifically written down.
But isn't it amazing how these are the same places that demonized, knowing things in advance or using, fortune telling, because that's one of the things they would talk about with, playing dream numbers and playing on, that was like, oh, you're trying to fortune tell. But at the same time, they at church talking about it.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And see, what people don't know, how Dutch Schultz got into the numbers game, because he was a beer baron. But on January the 16th of 1928, 29, when they stopped alcohol, there was a prohibition. No alcohol could be sold. Somebody down at Tammany Hall told Dutch Schultz that I'd look toward Harlem. All those pennies. Don't forget, they wasn't paying for dollars. They were paying for pennies and nickels and dimes. But it was the volume that was the thing that attracted it. And he broke into it. So when you hear this sanitized version of Forrest Whitaker playing Bumpy Johnson and all that stuff, and the Dutch shows, that's nothing. That's nothing.
Right.
That's nothing.
Ooh. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I wrote about it in Forever Harlem. There's a classic book I wrote, Forever Harlem, where I wrote the numbers game. And what happens is, it was sponsored by a newspaper, and they wanted a picture of Casper Holstein Small. I told him, because I'm writing it, he's got to be a whole full page, so there's no question who introduced the numbers game to Harlem. It was a black man. He had a Jewish name, because if you heard the name Casper Holstein, you would have thought he was of a ethnicity.
Right.
We got names that don't belong to us, actually.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
When you look at it like that. So I wanted to make it clear, where a picture's worth 1,000 words. When they see that face, there is no question, no shadow of a doubt, who introduced the numbers game to Harlem. He was a black man, Casper Holstein. And he died in April. He died in April of 1940 something. Anyway, I've got all these dates in my head.
I was like, I love the dates.
But that's what numerology does for you. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It calls you to hold on to statistics like that. So then you can weave a story and tell it. So when you do it long enough, you'll do that. And Nick is going to be the same way. One day he's going to be spouting off this, that, and the other, because he'll have all those numbers and they'll be etched in his brain. Trust me.
Yeah, like, it's starting. It's starting already.
I know what you're saying, brother. Definitely, without question. Definitely, without question.
It definitely is. It definitely is. I was very pleased with the readings that Nick helped me with, and it was so funny because I had picked one date, and I was putting together an event, and so I said, "Well, Nick, what do you think about this date right here?" And he said, "All right, I'll take it and I'll get back to you." And he was like, blah blah blah. He gave it to me. He was like, he said, "But actually, if you could hold off one day,
your brother know what he's talking about.
Would make it better." And I looked at the calendar and I saw that it fell right by Memorial Day. So we had an extra day that we could plan it. It didn't have to be on the weekend. And it was the perfect day. It was the perfect numbers.
Yeah, but that's why you got your 2-year podcast with Nick. He is good at what he does. I don't invite nobody on this show to embarrass themselves.
I know that's right.
So when he's on this show, he's good. All my others, Shawan, Queen Bee, Miss Kimberly, Portia, those are the ones I've had so far. All of them are good. All of them are good. I'm not going to bring, it doesn't, what do I look like embarrassing them to make me look good. That's cheap. That's cheap. That's like, I mean, why do that to them? That's why I don't tell them, well, here's Nick and Nick is my student. No, this is Nick Westbrooks, a numerologist, period. Okay.
Yes.
And that's it. So people are focused. Not, okay, well, that's Lloyd's student, and therefore, but Lloyd is really better. Well, when does he grow? When does he get a chance to shine? You know what I'm saying? So that's how I think but that's how we Aquarians roll. You should know that, Roo.
Yes, I do. We love letting people shine. You know, we do. We love it. You know.
Yeah.
And you know, it's something else because Nick is so very grounded and so modest, you know, and sometimes he'll give a reading and it's like, do you realize you just really said some powerful stuff there, you know? And you know, I even did that, you know, I took one of the readings he gave to me and I shared it with a group I was doing a workshop for, and they were just all very impressed because many of them, you know, had not seen it done the way that he did it, and it was just awesome, you know. And so I'm grateful for that. And you know, and I will say, you bringing them on and not introducing them so much as your student, it really talks about what kind of teacher you are. Because if you brought people on to embarrass themselves, it would say more about you as a teacher than it would about them as a student.
Yeah.
Because the student is only as good as the information and the data that goes in. You know what I'm saying? And what they're able to then, you know, share from it. So it's amazing. And for all Nick's classmates that happen to be in there, because I can't see that part of the screen right now, let me let you know he talk about y'all all the time. I think I've seen anybody that has done, anybody that's listening that has done a show, I've seen you because Nick has pointed you out to me.
Yeah, but he's a class act though. See that?
Yes, he
Those
is.
are the kind of people that makes this a very ongoing field, very respected. And you know, I'm proud to know Nick. And as I said, it all started at the Source of Life, the Source of Knowledge bookstore in Newark on Broad Street.
Yes.
And Nick came in, and he had this. I had not seen this book in years. Okay? And in fact, if you go to his IG, you'll see a picture of us holding the book.
Yeah.
We standing next to each other, and I signed the book, which he showed you, you know?
Yes.
And then he started following me. But what was really started impressing me was he would catch my little errors. Because I make mistakes. I don't mean to, but he would catch them. And I says, now, that I like.
Yes.
That I like very much. And then when he said he signed up for the course, it was like, yeah. and as a result of all the 10 students, he was the first one on the show. The very first one on December the 4th.
That's wonderful. You know, it's wonderful. You know, it's those attentive people that really keep us, you know, enjoying what we do, you know, and you know, just as Aquarians, we love to know how we can make ourselves better. So when people catch our, you know, our little things that, you know, we could have did better sometimes, and they'll say, oh, well, you could tweak this. I'll be like, thank you. You know, because we got that thing going on where we might not make it to perfect, but damn it, we trying to get
Listen,
we trying to get there.
I have a question I want to ask you, Roo. You have 7 children, 5 boys, 2 girls, right? What is the birthday of your 7th child?
The 16th of January, 98.
That's interesting. The 16th. The reason why I said that, because in the laws of numbers and births, the 7th child is always the special child. In the Jackson family, Michael Jackson was the 7th child. So although the group was known, he was known even more so. And in fact, he garnered 4.8 billion fans. This was before the advent of the internet. Okay.
Yes.
Malcolm X was a 7th child. So whoever your 7th child is, I keep an eye on him.
Yes, he is very special. I will say that he is very, very special.
What is that?
You know, And every one of them are.
Oh yeah, when I talk about Michael Jackson, yeah, thanks.
Every one of them are really special, and they are. So there's Capricorns that are in December and in January. Then there's a Libra, then there's an Aries, then there's a Gemini, then there's a Scorpio. So I just got a nice little mix there. And I will say this, and the reason I asked about that, do people get their children read and so they can learn how to be better parents?
Yes, they do.
I remind people that nobody teaches you how to be a parent. And they definitely don't teach you how to be a parent to adult children. And that's one of the places where I started to see that just being around the science allowed me to be able to connect with them in different ways and see the lessons that they came here to teach me, like the lessons that I get from them even, more so than what I poured into them. And so it's really nice to be learning these things even still, because every one of my children are involved in some science or another. Every one of
their
them.
Mother. And don't forget to read books. So
they love books. They love books.
Actually, we as parents, when we become parents, actually sets the tone. For example, when I was growing up, my mom and dad would smoke, but they would tell me, don't smoke. The first brand of cigarettes I smoked was Marlboros. Guess what my mother smoked? Marlboro. So when I started having children, I stopped smoking. None of smoke. So they copy. How you going to tell them not to when they see you lighting up a cigarette? How are they going to tell you to do this when you're doing that? The exact same thing you tell them not to do, that's what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So what we do as adults sets an example for our children as when we become parents. So you can't say later on, well, you shouldn't do that, because they will rightfully say, well, you smoke. And what you going to say? Well, I smoke, but you can't smoke.
Yeah. I think one of the greatest
things.
One of the greatest lessons I've learned from just, being open to, all kinds of science is that, it's allowed me to be able to look at myself in what period of life, like you were saying, certain years were highs and lows. Like I look at some of the times when, being a parent was challenging, and I didn't quite know what to do. And so when, as adults now, when I watch them with my grandchildren or whatever like that, I say to myself, okay, that was a space where I see I could have done something different, or I could have, I see how the way they're handling it is a reflection of them not wanting to do the same thing that I did. And I'm fine with that. I'm great with that, because like I said, that was one of the things about my mom. Either I wanted to be just like her or nothing like her. It depends on what the situation was. And so just watching them, I'm impressed and I'm pleased with them. And, I love to see them going further even than I have. So,
well, you wouldn't be a mom if you didn't think like that.
I'm proud of them. Yes.
As parents, we always want our children to be better than we were.
Yes.
Whatever
yes.
it is. And I think that's and maybe that's how we all evolve generation to generation, So I think that's how we do. But I think this is nice. This is such an honor to be on with, and see, because I've seen you watching Nick, because he has another show I follow, this money guy. Very, very interesting.
DJ.
Yeah, I follow him too. So you can learn from everybody if you're open. You really, really can, So when I looked at your hands, for example, you have very long fingers, which tells me you're very intelligent. It tells me a lot of your fingers are spaced, which means you're open and receptive to ideas and things like that. The way we even hold our hands and things like that, it tells a lot. It's a lot. It's not.
It's funny. I got, when I'm in a very relaxed mood, I hold my hand like this.
But that's the nice thing, is that's the best time to do it, when a person is relaxed, not tense. Because when a person is tense, they're defensive, they're protective, And of course, in the defense, they're going to show their best side or their protective side. But when you feel right at home, you just being who you are, that's when the real stuff comes out.
You know, I find it amazing that you could look at my hand even through the screen and notice things. You know,
Yes,
I
and I noticed your
remember.
heart, your heart line goes straight across the top of the hand, too. Yeah. See, so I'm looking at her right hand. So the line is rounding the curve. Okay, that's your right hand or left hand?
This is my right one.
Okay, so from the screen it looks in reverse. But for if you look at the line that's curving around the palm of the hand, that's the lifeline. That tells me her vitality. You know, you're gonna be as old as dirt. I can tell you that. You're gonna be around for a long time. And dirt is real old, okay? So
I
you're gonna
love
be
it.
around a long time. But then your headline, the line in the middle, curves down, which tells me love of art and theater and design and dance and things of that nature.
Yes.
That if you had your calling, and then your heart line goes, so it tells a lot. And in fact,
You
I'm going
know,
to teach, of course,
that's so
on palmistry.
interesting because again, like everything else that church demonizes, you know, palmistry is one of those ones they just like, no. You know,
Yeah.
you might as well just come in with a black cat sitting on top of your head, you know. But I remember trying to read palmistry books and they just made no sense to me. Like no sense to me. Like they would talk about like the mound of Venus and all these different things like that, and I'd be like, what
That's
is
the fleshy part under your fingers, and if it's mounted and things like that. So you
right?
can tell a lot. You can tell a lot. You can tell a lot about the fingers. Each finger represents a characteristic. It represents a zodiac sign. It rules a planetary ruler. So it's interesting. The for example, the marriage finger, which is where the normally the finger sits, is normally on the third finger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
Mm-hmm.
this is the finger that rules the sun. See,
Mm-hmm.
the first finger rules Jupiter. This rules Capricorn or Saturn. This rules the sun, and this rules Mercury. So, I mean, there's really art to this. It's really art to this. And this is what I'm going to teach. I'm going to do a workshop on this in April.
Ha
How to
ha!
use hands. So you
Y'all
can
hear
sit
that,
right across from
people?
somebody and just look at their hands or how they hold their hands and tell a lot about them. It's not about so much getting in their business, but it's understanding the nature of the people you have to interact with when you do. That's all.
Yes. The more information, the better you can help.
This is what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah.
And if you got
Yeah.
short
I
nails and
love
French
that.
doors, and if I wanted to hire somebody where they had the spot flaws, the shorter the nails, the better. But it also tells me they will be prone to heart problems too, and circulations. Yours is not. Yours represents the lungs and the chest and the throat, and it tells me that in the winter times you get into turtlenecks when you go out in the street.
I always love my neck covered.
Yeah, but see, I just noticed the turtleneck as I said that. But
I love my neck covered.
these
I
are
do.
things that you begin to notice that you don't have to notice and get in their business. So my thing is about the power of being observant, like a detective. Like you looked
Yes.
at the what's the guy Sherlock Holmes, how he would deduce just by observing things. Well, he held his hand this way, so he must have been a lawyer or whatever the case is. There is something um, there is something about all these ancient sciences. This is why they wanted the average Joe kept in the dark about the stars, about the numbers, and about the hands.
Wow.
Only the rich knew. Did you know there's a special newsletter for Wall Street astrology? Just for those that
No.
want to invest, when to invest? Yes, they've got all these kind of things. They ain't gonna tell you. Why should you know why should you know when to invest in a stock? Are you
Well,
serious?
they don't have to worry about telling me because I'm not a gambler. That's the one thing that passed me over. I'm not a
No, I
gambler.
saw it from your hand. Your pinky finger is just the shortest. So that right there. You're
Not a gambler.
no,
Mm-mm.
no.
I like short shots.
You wouldn't be a woman if you didn't like a short
You
shot.
know, I like, you know, that's why I think I like creating because I have more control over, you know what I'm saying? I can create freely, but then I have control over where I put it, who I give it to, who I share it
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm not the gambling type. But one of the things I was gonna say is that I love how you integrate everything. Like you said, everything is connected. Moving forward, can you see adding some more things? Because I know Nick had introduced me to 2 of the iridologists you have
Yes, that was
as
Bonnie.
students. So where do you see the next evolution of your work?
Well, one of them is I also study the tarot. So when I talk about the compound number, that has a definition of itself. But my forte, see, so I mean, there's so many avenues. So, but I have 3 main ones. My love first is numerology, my second is astrology, then my third is palmistry. So those are the lanes I stay in. But I do understand the language of palmistry, and as well as meditation, as well as the cowrie shells. I understand all of those. So because it's all intermingled, but I can't be an expert of everything. So that which I'm passionate about, those 3, that's where my focus is. But I'm always open to see what other person's got to say. I mean, one time there was a guy that read me looking at a glass of water. That was the most fascinating thing. Everybody's got a gift.
Yes.
Everybody has a gift,
Right.
So we need to be open, but we're so closed. And well, this is the way I do it. And if you don't like the way I do it, you go home to your mother. Well, that don't allow the other person to express their individuality. And that person wants to want for themselves what you want for yourself. You can't have it both ways.
Absolutely.
So people are very selfish, and this is probably one of the reasons why relationships aren't as meaningful or as lasting as they should. Well, if you don't like it, you go home to your mother. As again, working through it, okay, that's their thing, and I got my thing, and let's have a meeting of the minds and whatnot.
Right.
That's why our elders, our grandparents and great-grandparents was married 40, 50, 60 years. Now people don't want to be together 40, 50, 60 days.
Facts. Facts.
So and there wasn't in no zodiac signs. There wasn't in no numbers. It was for better or worse, for sickness or health, or for rich or poor. It was just simple, just simple things. And they wrote it out. And don't think they didn't work each other's nerves either. Okay.
Facts.
Because that's
can't be together that long and not.
How they work through it. That's the point. And a lot of people don't want to work through it. Soon as they get upset, then I'm going. You by yourself and whatnot. And then that's why we have the kind of relationships we have now, which for the most part is very superficial, as against a relationship with depth to it.
Yes. Yes.
So anyway, I'm gonna have to wrap this up. I mean, I didn't know if because I could talk to you for a long time. I have other things I have to do, but I will say this, people can always get the best way is linktr.ee/numbersandyou. That's linktr.ee/numbersandyou. That is the best way where you get all of my services, the app, the newsletter that's free, phones, consultations, whatever. All of it is right there. But I'd like to be back so we can do a part 2. I don't know why I didn't think at the time. I looked, I said, whoa, I'm enjoying myself. I got other things.
And you know what? I'll tell you, Nick and I are guilty because we love to get our guests on here and just keep going because we come in ready. And
believe me, I can keep going. I mean, I'm just so passionate about this. But you got the right person for the marathon. He's run his marathons. He's run 5Ks too. Okay. Ready to run this thing. He's ready. He's definitely ready. So
well, you know what? I thank you so much for being with us. And
thank you.
I'm just gonna say thank you
very much, sir.
For sharing everything with me and just reading me, giving me these little things, because believe me, I'm going to sit down and journal and think about some of the things you said. And so I just thank you, and I'll let Nick take you out.
Well, you and Nick always you always got access to me, especially Nick. He's got it like that with me. So we spoke.
I love it.
Situation. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you already know how we get down, Lloyd. So yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk about the follow up. Because would like to talk a little bit more about your books and the process. So we'll definitely have that follow up.
The stages I went through to publish the book, but I just talked about how the book evolved from a person that gave me that as just as an idea. And I even had nerve to put numbers in you on the side too.
Wow.
I said that if I had to name the book, and only because there are only but so many letters they'll give you, that's how I came up with the title Numbers in You.
Yep.
That's
And
amazing.
it's been Numbers in You ever since. Ever since. Everything I do is Numbers in You.
That's
So I
amazing.
thank my friend Lloyd Williams to this day, my colleague, and both he and I, and both our fathers was Aries, born on April 1st. His father was Aries. And we're both born on the same date. He's just born 1 month earlier than I am, but it's the same. World is small. Got to be nice to people. It don't cost nothing to be humane one to another.
Yes.
So I want to thank Shawan. I want to thank B and BTV, all those, and everything like that. So it's good. And see, look at the books he's got. See, that's why he's my man.
Yes. Look at that. Quite the collection.
Yeah. A lot of people don't have that many collections like him, especially the Black Book.
Yes.
That is also a collector's item. All he needs to do is get one of the blue books, and then he'll have the complete set. And those books are available. I think there's a place called ABC Books or something where they sell out of print books.
Yes.
And that way you add it to your collection. When you do, Mr. Westbrooks, I will come and sign it.
All right.
That's amazing.
Hey, sounds great. Sounds great. Yeah, we'll go ahead, Lloyd, before you get yelled at.
No, well, my granddaughter, she calls me, she's a Leo. Told you I love my Leos. Well, this 9-year-old, she's like, Papa, okay.
Let's go.
Anyway, I saw her trying to reach me, but we'll deal. But Roo, it's a pleasure meeting you. It's an honor and a pleasure. I didn't know you was Aquarius. I said, no wonder I was feeling you. Okay. That makes all the sense in the world. Yeah. But y'all have a great day. Thank you so much. All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And Nick, thank you especially, brother. Thank you. That was great. Okay.
Of course. Thank you.
Talk to you later. Bye now.
Thank you. Well, Nick, we have just had, and listen, it's only the first one for 2025. Yeah. I mean, I feel like now we done set the bar. We just set the bar high. I don't even know what to do now after this.
Well, listen. I'm gonna. I might have mentioned this to you before, but listen, we got other authors in the family. You know, I'm definitely gonna bring Portia on from the numerologist of the 21st century family to talk about the digital currency. Okay. So we definitely got some. You know, we got some good follow-ups.
Listen, so I think that would be awesome. Especially now, you know, some of us, you know, weren't raised around, you know, computers and all this stuff. So the whole idea of digital currency is just like when they started talking about direct deposit, we were like, what? So wait a minute, I never touch my money? What do you mean? But so I can't wait to see what she brings to the table. And again, today was just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing such an amazing teacher with us, someone who we can continue to learn from and with. And it was a great show today. I thank you, and I thank everyone who joined us today for our first episode in 2025. We are looking forward to this year and bringing you more unread books and wonderful authors to share with you not only their books but their process. And we are chugging along, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. So Nick, you want to close us out and we can get on out of here. That's another one for the books.
Yes. So looks like our next episode will be on the 25th of this month, January 25th. So, you know, tune back in with us in 2 weeks for the next episode. I don't remember where we'll be in our lineup, if that's a surprise me or if it's a known, but we will be here on the 25th regardless.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, thank you all for watching. And you know, have a great rest of the weekend. If you're watching live, have a great week. If you're watching the replay, we look forward to seeing y'all back on the 25th. And you know, hang in there on, you know, in this 9 year, this one universal month. Be great, you know, be disciplined, and keep striving. Continue to strive to be the best version of yourself each and every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank y'all. Another episode, Unread with Nick and Roo, the review. Thank you so much for coming. We will see you next time.